You're alive.
Okay. Great. Well, welcome everyone to a summer speaker series meeting today of the Sitka Chamber. I'm Rachel Roy, and I am so grateful to be the executive director here at the Chamber. And I just have a couple updates. We are busy right now with one of the biggest ship days that we have as far as cruise passengers go, with over 9,000 visitors. Our town's population is doubling today, so there are so many people out there working, and really just you can just feel the buzz happening out in the community. Thank you to everyone who's part of that and helping to share Sitka's story and help with jobs and economy going on. This week, so tomorrow from 5 to 7, we have the Sitka's Emerging Leaders group. It's our second monthly meetup. If you weren't at our first one, it was highly attended. We had 30 people come. We had a really great conversation around networking that was hosted by Alaska Airlines, Casey Hostetler, and she was able to talk about networking, and then we did a roundtable and we talked about all kinds of topics, and it is just an opportunity for folks that are in that 21 to 40-year-old group that can work on connecting with other professionals, and then also working on developing professional development and just thinking about things in your career and in the business community. We will be meeting out at the Halibut Point Crab and Chowder, and there'll be some snacks out there. They are hosting us, and if you haven't been there yet, it is such a beautiful location right on the water. It is at the Sitka Sound Cruise Terminal. In the email we sent out, there is a image with like where to park. It's kind of over to the right side of the building, and the ships are leaving, so it'll be pretty quiet out there, but we are going to be gathering. We're going to be hearing from the manager for the Halibut Point Crab and Chowder, and he's going to talk about leadership and his kind of experiences with leadership and being a manager, and share, and then we'll have that same round table. We'll also have some time for networking. That is all happening. You can find more information on our Facebook page, Sitka Chamber, or you can find it on our website. And we're also going to be having a grand opening for Unity Energetics, and it is it's a grand opening. We'll have a ribbon cutting. It's on this coming Saturday, the 22nd, and it's at 124 Lincoln Street. So if you go to Silver Basin, there's a door right to the left side of their front door, and it's upstairs. It will be happening from 4 to 7. They will have some time to visit, prize giveaways, mini sessions that you can kind of experience what they do. There's some Reiki, there's some energy work, coaching and things, and so really, really neat. Definitely something to come check out, that new business. And so we put that information out. You can come for a few minutes or stay for an hour. It's really informal, but a neat opportunity to meet that new member and new business in our community. I also wanted to talk about, last night we were at the commercial transportation meeting, town hall that the city put on, and they talked about taxis primarily, but also shuttles and tour operators. They're looking at changing the code, and basically this kicked off a 6-month process of public process that they're undergoing to change the code for taxi and commercial operators. The next time that they'll be meeting is when they'll present results of problem statements and possible solutions that were given from that public comment last night at the Police and Fire Commission meeting, which is the third or the very last Wednesday of the month. I believe it's at 6 o'clock at the fire hall, or 6 or 7. You have to check the calendar. They are looking for feedback, looking for input, they have published ordinance changes and suggestions, and really wanting to find some solutions to, one, help boost our transportation options, and also just solve some of the issues that have been happening around transportation. The other thing is that the Sitka Chamber and Visit Sitka are working on planning for a Southeast Conference, so mark your calendars. We're hosting here in Sitka September 19th through the 21st, and that is a 3-day conference, economic development. We talk about everything that's happening in the region, and you get to see, I think there's 90 presenters, and so really phenomenal. It's great. It's in Sitka, so I just encourage all of our members to look at that and potentially come. If you're coming from out of town, we have shared lodging information, and there's hotel rates, but I really encourage you to get in there early and book those rooms. The other thing Visit Sitka is working on is our meetings and conventions guide, which is it's a 2-year, we work on it every 2 years, and it is going to print this year, which we're really excited about. It is to inspire meeting planners and convention planners to take their meeting, bring it to Sitka for one, take the meeting and take it a step further by incorporating culture and arts and wildlife viewing and those different things when they are planning their meeting, to really make a memorable experience for visitors. And okay, so those were my updates, and I just got the ping from Laurie. I'm headed out to the Holland America Community Advisory Board meeting, and I am going to turn over the reins to Chase Coleman, who is our membership and convention salesperson. Let me get you on here. We're glad to have Chase on the team. He's really hit the ground running, coming to town mid-June, and we had the golf tournament, and then it's just been so busy, 4th of July. So we're glad to have him here. He will be available to help moderate the Q&A. Everyone that's online, if you have any questions for the team at Alaska Seaplanes, please feel free to use the Q&A, and those we'll have time at the end of the presentation for that. We are really, really lucky. I'm so glad to have our 3 speakers today. Kent Crawford, Carl Ramseth, and Andy Klein from Alaska Seaplanes to give us an update. Alaska Seaplanes is such a great partner for the Sitka Chamber, sponsoring at the gala, as well as being a sponsor at the golf tournament and all of our programs throughout the year. We're just so glad to be able to work with you. We held a really great grand opening of your business after hours over at the Alaska Seaplanes location here in Sitka. It was a really special way to kind of kick off that part of our program and getting us back in person, thank goodness. So I really appreciate that, and everything your team does to keep Sitka as an integral part of your organization. So I'm going to turn it over to Kent, and thank you for being here, and thank you all for this information. We'll have this presentation out on our Facebook. We also have our local media here, and we're glad to hear this update.
And Chase, just so you know, I'll share my desktop for the presentation, and then I think Kent will be kind of handling the majority of the presentation itself. So I'll start sharing screen, and then Kent, I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds great. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you, Rachel. Thanks, Chase. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kent Crayford. I'm the president of Alaska Seaplanes, and I want to apologize for my background. I'm in my mobile office here this afternoon, but I was just in Sitka last week, and so I thought maybe I could come up with a more Sitka-oriented background. I had a great photo of Sitka Bobs, but anyway, I'll save that for another time. I gotta say, having been in Sitka last week with my family, what a treat. It was so great to be there during your beautiful stretch of weather. It's just a wonderful place to bring kids and spend a few days as a tourist. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for hosting me. And it's just, it's really great to see the community bustling. I know that there's, well, the locals I spoke to had some mixed reactions to the number of cruise ship visitors that you're getting now, but at the same time, it was great to see local businesses, really busy, which is encouraging. So I wanted to speak today. I'm going to try and keep this presentation fairly brief so that we can save time for questions and discussions. But we want to talk about some things that are going on with Alaska Seaplanes, our industry as a whole, and we're gonna take the tough issues right up front. We've had a lot of feedback lately from customers about fares. It is no surprise to anyone that airfares, both locally and nationally, have been rising, and so we wanted to address that head on and talk about some of the drivers of airfares. We want to talk about some exciting news for Alaska Seaplanes, and that is that we have joined forces with Island Air Express, based in Ketchikan and Klawock, and talk about what that means for our two companies going forward and for travel in and around Southeast Alaska. And then we want to talk about just our ongoing efforts to try and make flying in Southeast Alaska safer and safer. It's a huge part of who we are and what we do, and we spend a lot of time and attention on that, and wanted to share some recent developments in that arena. So let's talk about prices and fares. Alaska Seaplanes, like most airlines across the country, large and small, have had tremendous cost pressures in recent years, and you are seeing that reflected in the fares. If you fly us, periodically, you'll notice that our fares have risen here in the last couple of years. In fact, in 2022, we had to push through 3 different fare increases last year to keep up with our rising costs. Prior to that, at least in the 10 years we had been running the business, we had only raised fares once in a year. So we've seen a real hockey stick effect recently in our cost drivers. This mirrors the inflation that we're seeing in the broader economy, but it's particularly acute in the cost drivers for airlines, scheduled airlines, and those are, of course, fuel, being a huge one, insurance, but largest of all, labor. Some of you may be aware that we've been in the midst of a national pilot shortage for the last several years. This is largely a demographic issue, with a lot of baby boomers retiring, but it's been compounded. The problem was compounded by COVID, where we had a big group of pilots retiring early rather than sitting on the sidelines, and then further some regulatory changes at the FAA level that have made it harder to become a pilot in the first place, and much harder to obtain a commercial pilot's license. The hours requirement to do that is much more significant now. It costs a whole lot more money than it used to, and so our pipeline isn't as big as it used to be. So all of those factors combine to create a real shortage in the industry for pilots, and that, of course, drives the price of pilot labor up significantly. And Alaska Seaplanes has to compete to attract pilots. We're not only competing with other small airlines, we're competing with the likes of Horizon and SkyWest and Alaska Airlines, larger, what we call Part 121 air carriers as well. So with that, labor as a small airline operator with only 9 seats per aircraft, labor is a significant component of our cost. It is by far the largest cost driver for Alaska Seaplanes, and we're seeing our labor costs surge, and so we're having to pass that on in our fares. The same is generally true for aircraft and power plant mechanics in the aviation business. We're also seeing a demographic issue there. About a third of aircraft pilots nationally are over 55 years of age. We have just not seen the ranks of aircraft mechanics being replenished with younger mechanics like we used to. And so that is also creating this demographic issue where, we're facing a shortage of mechanics. I'm happy to report the Alaska Seaplanes is fully staffed in our shop, but we've had to get really creative to do that. We've been well staffed on our flight line and with pilots as well, but we've had to do things that we never had to. Not just increasing our wages. We've had to provide housing, which we never used to do in the past. We've had to change some of our schedules to make it more amenable for contractors. We've actually added recently 3 contract mechanics for the first time to supplement our full-time local mechanics. So we're doing what we can, but it's expensive, and these are some of the things that have driven our costs up. Finally, another big driver has been insurance. Aviation insurance market has been what we call very hard in the last several years, and that means higher prices for insurance. We have seen a little bit of, I wouldn't say softening, but a plateauing of prices here in the last 12 months, which is very encouraging. And we're hoping that that those costs have crested. So those are our major drivers. At the same time, we've nonetheless done what we can to really try and hold fares in check by keeping our belts tight. We have also instituted a much broader range of fares in a really a more conventional airline model. Years ago, for those of you who've been flying with Alaska Seaplanes for a long time, you may remember we used to just charge one price, one fare. If you pulled up on our website, a flight from Sitka to Juneau and or Sitka to Klawock, and you looked at the schedule, you see there was just one price for every flight. Well, it's not that way anymore. Sometimes you'll pull it up and you'll see as many as 2, 3, or even 4 different prices. Very similar to when you fly to Seattle or Anchorage or whatever, Alaska Airlines. And we've gone to that model to try and make more money when we can for those who really need to go at a specific time and are willing to pay the cost, but still keep some lower fares available for people whose time is more flexible. It's nothing new. It's nothing original. We're just taking a page out of the larger airlines book, but it has worked pretty well, and it's really been helpful to keep some fares available at the lower end for people who are more willing to be flexible with their schedules. As such, we've also been able to use that strategy to offer some discounts in the summer. We're really hoping that this can spur some additional local travel, especially for those of you who might get a break once in a while in the summer. We tend to book our tourism travel early. Those people tend to book a ways out. So we have a fare sale going on right now that we're really hoping more locals will see and find. What's great too out of Sitka is not only being able to get to Juneau and Klawock on a regular basis, but you can now get to Petersburg and Wrangell, not to mention connecting flights to Haines, Skagway, Gustavus, pretty much anywhere in Southeast, you can get to Sitka on Alaska Seaplanes in 2 flights or less. So our route map really affords excellent connectivity. So it's a great time to travel if you get a day off, and check us out online, take a look, and great time to go try the train in Skagway. Great time to go see Glacier Bay.
great time to go fishing in Pelican, whatever you want to do. We have a pretty full schedule right now with really great connectivity, and you can pretty much get anywhere in Southeast within a few hours. I want to talk a little bit about our big news this year, which is the merging of Alaska Seaplanes and Island Air Express. Island Air Express is based in Klawock on Prince of Wales Island. It's been around for about 20 years. It's still operated by its founder, Scott Van Balen, and they operate the busiest route in Southeast Alaska, and that's between Ketchikan and Prince of Wales Island. It's first class operation. They've been an all-turbine fleet for a long time. They fly very similar equipment to us, Cessna Caravans and a Pilatus PC-12. We have been, talking about this for some years now, and finally made it happen here a couple months ago. And it's really, a combination of two esteemed peers that are, operate very similarly, have very similar values, very similar culture, focused on innovation and safety. Island Air's innovation has really been in the IFR space. That's instrument flight rules. That's what allows you to fly precision approaches in inclement weather, which is, it's a huge advantage for flying in Southeast Alaska with our weather challenges and terrain and so forth. Alaska Seaplanes has been a big innovator on our systems and processes, infrastructure, especially in the safety arena. We were the first and largest commuter carrier in the state to implement a full-blown safety management system, FAA-approved SMS program voluntarily. That was a huge undertaking. That's something that normally only the major airlines do, like Alaska Airlines and Delta and so forth. So we were really on the vanguard of that, and we've been operating under this SMS program for the last 2 years. It's our team has put a lot of work into that, and that'll be extending to Island Air Express as well. Island Air, even though is part of our family of companies now, it continues to operate independently. Their operations have been unchanged. We do hope next year, we're planning already, to have better connectivity between our two route maps, so that you can get from Ketchikan to Haines, easier and more expeditiously. You'll be able to get from between Ketchikan and Sitka, or Ketchikan and Juneau, or any points in between. So, we know that a lot of flying will still take place on the jet. We probably won't be flying over the top of the jet, but you do have Alaska Seaplanes and Island Air Express as another alternative option. And we're hoping to be a good option for better connectivity, especially for medical travel across Southeast Alaska. Many of our routes have developed over time to serve medical travel for locals. And I want to just say to that, we are very proud to be a close partner with Search. Many of our routes throughout Southeast we're really started to provide better connectivity for Search patients. We're very excited to see the growth that Search has taken on in Sitka and throughout Southeast, and really proud to be their partner. I talked a little bit about our SMS program, but just a little more information about that. The program requires us to conduct our operations in a certain way, and it requires us to maintain data on our operations that we wouldn't necessarily otherwise keep, and to also be consistently analyzing that data to identify risk points within our operations and mitigate those. To date, since we implemented this 2 years ago, the best example I can give you is what's called a flight risk assessment. We call them frats. It's an assessment that has to be conducted before every single flight operation. The pilot does an analysis of the upcoming flight, weather conditions, and so forth, and assigns a numerical score based on various variables. They then submit that to the dispatch, and the dispatch either approves the flight or declines the flight based on the risk assessment. To date, we have over 15,000 of those risk assessments now that we've conducted. It's pretty incredible database of information, and we're able to take that and analyze all sorts of things about our operation statistically that we never could before. It's a very powerful tool. We're still learning to use it. To be honest, it's pretty new stuff still, but it's already given us an excellent window into our operations and how we can continually make them safer. Just a little more information about that. I mean, it's all these things that we're doing with SMS, with safety, they do come at a cost. We're one of the few 135 scheduled operations in the state that has a full-time safety officer. His job is to maintain and manage our SMS program, the various software programs that support it, and then tying in all parts of our departments. Each of our department heads, has to devote quite a bit of time to the SMS program. And of course, we have safety reports from our line staff and so forth. So, all this has been excellent, but it also has come at a cost. So it just it's a cost we are unapologetic about. We're continuing to invest in this, but in the long run, we think it's a very worthwhile investment. And I have to say, we know that it's making aviation in Southeast Alaska much safer. We've really come a long way. In 10 years, we've gone from a piston wheelplane fleet to an all-turbine IFR-capable aircraft fleet with state-of-the-art avionics. We have dramatically reduced the amount of VFR flying we do in wheelplanes, at least. That's probably one of the most significant advancements we've seen in aviation in Southeast, since it started 100 years ago. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to questions, and if you have any questions about Alaska Seaplanes, our operations, Island Air Express, where we're flying, what we're flying, I'd love to take any questions you might have.
Well, thanks for that, Kent. It doesn't look like we have any questions quite yet in Q&A, but there is one thing that I was kind of thinking about. Maybe you guys have an answer, maybe you don't. Maybe just something to think about. Do you guys know of, or are you currently working with any maybe technical programs or youth programs for high school students for the lack of labor and just young pilots, young mechanics? What does that field look like?
It's interesting you say that. We are just one thing that comes to mind, Kent, is there is a class at Mount Edgecombe for pilots, and we've worked with that teacher. I'm forgetting Jack's last name. Maybe you know it, but and his students have come over and worked with our outstation manager, and they've gotten a tour of the facility, and they even, in fact, got to fly on a couple of flights up to Juneau and back. So that's an exciting, development. To think that there's kids learning in Mount Edgecombe. There are some from Sitka, but some from all over the state that are identifying being a pilot in a 135 or being a pilot wherever their aspirations take them as a career. That's something they already have aspirations to. So we're working on that. Further developments with the high schools there. I don't really think we have anything formal, but it's a great point. I don't know if you know of anything, Carl or Ken.
Yeah, we haven't done anything at the high school level yet, but we have been working for a few years with deepening our connections with various flight schools around the country. And for any high school student in Southeast Alaska that is considering a career in aviation, whether it's as a pilot or a mechanic, I can tell you the market is incredibly strong right now. You're pretty much guaranteed a job after graduation if you do well in school, and we're in a position to be able to refer people, refer students to some of those programs. We've had a few people who have come over to Alaska Seaplanes as baggage handlers or counter agents and gotten the bug and then decided to go into flight school. And I can tell you that's something that we really encourage people to do. Come check us out. We've got entry-level positions. We employ a number of high school kids, in fact, Logan including, from Sitka. I think he started working for us when he was 15. And he's great, and also a great photographer, by the way.
And he's up in flight school in Anchorage right now, Ken. I don't know if you know.
There you go.
Just last week he left for Anchorage and he's in flight school up there.
Yeah, perfect example. So Logan's a great example of just exposing yourself to aviation and understanding what's available and what it can look like as a career. What's really gratifying for us is that to see locals like our Chief Operating Officer, Sean Quim, for instance. He's from Hoona, grew up commercial fishing, then went to flight school, came back, and now he's running, the largest commuter operation in Southeast Alaska. And he grew up flying, back and forth to Hoona, when he was a kid on airplanes similar to what we fly now. So it's a great opportunity to get into aviation and yet come back home and have a career at home, and also, not to mention, be home every night. So it's we don't wear ties and epaulets at Alaska Seaplanes. It's not that kind of airplane flying, but it is pretty neat to have a local connection and be able to fly your friends and neighbors around. And so, I think to your question, Chase, we do need to kind of get that message out a little bit better, maybe with among local students. And we're gonna keep at that.
Oh, that sounds great. I know one of the things we're trying to work on at the Chamber is just workforce development, and I know those opportunities are going to be really important for a lot of people. So it's even something that we can do at the Chamber to try to help get that message out and let those opportunities be heard. Maybe one more. We still don't have any questions from any of our participants, but just something that I'm kind of curious about is we always talk about COVID. I know people always say, "Are we over COVID? What's that look like?" But can you maybe just talk about like some of your growth since COVID, and are you kind of seeing yourself beyond that hump? And what does maybe the next few years look like for Alaska Seaplanes?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that COVID certainly created some turbulence, in our business, pun intended. It's I think I recall like April 6th of 2020. I think that was our low point. We flew like 4 people that day, something like that. Those 4 brave souls. And a lot of toilet paper, and other stuff on that airplane. What happened with COVID was we saw our freight business surge. We saw our passenger business just drop off a cliff. And then, like most airlines around the country, we saw passengers slowly come back, a little more in 2021, and then a huge resurgence in 2022. A lot of pent-up travel demand in 2022. A lot of people who had foregone those family vacations and those fishing trips and everything else. And now we're seeing it kind of flattening out, getting back to a little bit normal. Some of the things that we're seeing that are creating headwinds are, of course, all this inflation that I talked about earlier, and people being a little more reluctant to spend money in an inflationary environment, but they still are, which is good. I think the macro national economy will really be, going forward. I think that's going to be, really tell the tale about, what our 2024 looks like as well. We're very hopeful to see, continued growth. There's been a lot of prediction of recession this year. The recession that's always 6 months away but never seems to arrive. We're thankful that it hasn't. But we're also hoping that maybe people are a little more optimistic next year, and independent travelers especially, which, we do have a lot of cruise ship oriented business, but the bulk of our business is independent travel. We depend on people going on fishing trips, like I said, and flying to places in and around Southeast Alaska. And they're largely flying because they're not on a ship. We, of course, also have, a tour business subsidiary that does a lot of cruise ship tours and that kind of thing. So we have a foot in both camps. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we very much are, want to see the cruise ship industry healthy in Southeast Alaska, but it's uncertain. There's certainly some concerns on the horizon. I've been watching some national businesses like Airbnb seeing their bookings starting to plateau or drop even, which means maybe some people are spending less money on independent travel. So we're just going to continue to watch. In the meantime, we got to try and do what we can to just stay efficient, so that we can, succeed regardless. But I don't know if that was kind of a long answer to your question, maybe a little meandering there, Chase, but it's hard to predict the future.
No, that was great. Thank you, Kent, for that. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's always hard to see what's over the horizon there. Well, there's no other questions. Victoria, I don't know if we have anything on Facebook.
But if anybody's on Facebook, feel free to ask any questions in the chat.
Well, I will just say if we do, we know how to find you guys. We'll forward you any questions that we get. We can wrap it up. Thank you, Alaska Seaplanes, very much for going on today. We really appreciate your partnership with us at the Chamber, and we look forward to the future. It sounds really exciting for you guys.
Thank you, Chase and Victoria.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes,
Thank you.
Here.
Take care.